And last little bit of housekeeping before we get started here. I know that you guys are going to want to see these slides, um, either if this is live or you're watching the recording later. So what you can do is you can just pull out your phone right now and open up the camera app and take a picture or scan it, and then that will send an email to the Simplesat team, and that is the best way to get your slides. And if that doesn't work for any reason, I know that some iPhone users that don't have the Mail app installed, if that's not working, then you can send an email to Todd. Let me just put this in the main chat real quick. Everyone in the meeting, Eric plus Todd. So if that doesn't work for any reason, just send an email to Eric plus Todd at simplesat.io, and then that's the best way to get your slides as well. All right, just leave this on for a few more seconds until we're ready. 3, 2, 1. Okay, take it away, Todd.
All right. So we're going to start with some fundamentals here before we get into the steps necessary to retain clients, grow your business, and provide an excellent world class customer service experience. So the first thing really is that service is first, and service is everything in a lot of ways. Without high quality service delivery, your clients will not listen to you about anything else that you have to say. I'm sure many of you have had that experience where you go into a QBR with a customer and you have a lot of ideas and plans and that can help support their business and projects that you want to talk about. And that executive or that business contact that you're meeting with just cannot get off the fact that they've had this ticket open for 2 weeks. And that's all they really want to talk about. It creates a blocker for you to really be able to present any strategic value beyond what you want to talk about around projects, around account management and how you can support their business, and potentially also some business development efforts as well. So this to me is, I think, really, really critical of just getting that service delivery dialed before you start to stack on those other things. It's the first place you need to start, and it's the thing you need to make sure is really working in your business before you're going to get the value of spending more time on the other things as well. So go through a bit of a step process here and how we go about this and growing your business and creating this world class experience. And the first one is that you need to fix your onboarding process. I meet with a lot of MSPs as I'm doing consulting and just meeting with people as well. And this is an area where there's sort of I have one, but there's not a high degree of confidence in how they're actually onboarding customers. It's a lot of work. It's not necessarily repeatable. This process is really, really important, and you need to have this process dialed in. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you definitely need to think about this and iterate on what you're presenting and how you're onboarding your clients. One of the things that I think is really crucial here that a lot of MSPs get wrong is that this is not just a technical process. A lot of people think of onboarding as, well, I need to deploy my RMM agent and I need to deploy some software and my AV, my backup, all of these technical systems. And sure, those things are important, but there's also a business and there are people involved in this. And that is really, really crucial to get right, again, to have a high quality onboarding experience. So make sure you're thinking about the people that are in this as well, right? And how you're impacting the business, not just the technology. And why this is really important as well is that you're going to be compared against all of the other IT experiences that the business and the users have had. And you want to be able to make some deposit in the trust bank, is the way I describe this, is that if you get the onboarding really dialed in and the clients and the users really have a high quality experience in that onboarding, you're kind of starting this relationship from 100. And any sort of mishaps or issues that you have, maybe user setups, client deployment, whatever those sort of natural missteps that do happen in IT, it's not the end of the world. You started from 100, you get knocked down to 95 or 90, and then you kind of click back up and regain that trust. But if the onboarding goes poorly, you're kind of starting from around 20 or 30, and you're really desperately trying to eke up that number and drive that level of trust. So think about that onboarding as making that deposit in the trust bank and starting with a high value that you can sort of chip away at as things naturally happen in IT, right? So around this idea of creating a high quality user experience and the people that are involved in this process, I really like this quote from Maya Angelou. It's people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this really goes to the core, I think, of what we're talking about here. That a lot of people think about, how they close tickets and how smart their staff is and how much they know about technology. Those things are great, but in a lot of ways, they're table stakes because the client naturally expects that you're good at these things. Why else did they hire you? Right? Sure, I should be able to expect that you can close tickets and that you know how to set up a server infrastructure. Yeah, that's part of your job. But how you actually make them feel and the experience that they have in dealing with your staff and dealing with you as an organization, that's what will differentiate you. So, anyone who's concerned about commoditization of support services and things like that, this is key. You are a support service and a service entity that just happens to be working in technology, not the inverse. You're not a technology company that has a service division. Okay. So a really cool story about how I've seen some organizations do this really well and create sort of a factor of differentiation is make the onboarding a real celebration and an experience, something that's memorable for the users. And I have this group that I work with. They do a really good job about this, where they send people on site. They even have giant plates like towers of branded cookies. So the cookies, like, they're amazing. They're good cookies, but they also have the branding and their logo on top of those cookies. And they show up. They talk to everybody. They hand out these cookies and bring everyone in to kind of get introduced. And there's a lot of cheering and excitement. And naturally, people sort of look at this. They're like, "Wow, this is different. This is not like the last IT organization that we hired. And I did not see them for 2 weeks until someone was crawling around them or someone else's desk. That was like, oh, who's this guy?" And he's like, oh, that's our new IT guy. This is a far different experience and absolutely memorable for the people because of this differentiation. So feel free to sort of borrow that as something you can build in here. It doesn't necessarily need to be cookies, but think about some element that is fun and potentially amplifies your brand as you're onboarding those new clients.
If anyone's,
So next
if
piece,
anyone has, sorry, if anyone has any good ideas, put that in the chat if you guys are doing any celebration ideas to delight your customers.
yeah, it's a great one. I'd love to see that as well, Corey. Good call. All right. So next piece is the development of the roadmap, and this is sort of the first stage of this QBR or TBR, if you want to, if that's your term. Um, uh, just a quick note. So TBR, if anyone's not necessarily familiar with that term, it's technical business review versus quarterly business review. And I'm not one of those people that suggests if you're not meeting with every client quarterly, you're failing. Like that is certainly something that people hear in the industry and they get kind of a little freaked out by that. It doesn't necessarily need to be quarterly if it warrants it, sure, but otherwise you can just run a TBR, which is this technical business review or meeting that you have on some cadence. You should be meeting with all of your clients regularly, but it doesn't necessarily need to be quarterly. So whatever that cadence and that rhythm that you work out with your client is, then make sure that you're doing that. But this onboarding piece to develop that first stage of this TBR is really valuable because this is that you're doing this discovery process, learning a lot about the client environment, learning a lot about the people and learning a lot about the technology. And you should be really detailed in the notes that you're taking and understanding these are the things that are high priority and critical, probably need to change in the next 30 days. These are some of the things that we'll maybe get to later in the year. So the development of that TBR is crucial and starts sometimes even before the client is onboarded, but certainly want to be thinking about that and the development of that roadmap of we're here. This is ultimately where I want that client to be. So what is the path? What are the necessary projects and things that we need to talk about to get there? Okay. So we talked a bit about this, but I really, again, want to amplify this is ensuring the service consistency and service quality, right? So you want to be really detailed and understanding the client experience that people have day in and day out, hour by hour, because again, like you cannot get into that more strategic mode unless you're really dialed in on the service end of things. And this speaks to the importance of the service manager role, right? This is something that I talk a lot about because it's absolutely one of the most crucial roles in any MSP. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a person, but it definitely needs to be a hat that someone wears. So I often joke about these 8 hats that an MSP owner has to wear and all of the different duties that they're responsible for. This is one of those first hats that you need to delegate out to someone else as you start to grow. but being conscious of who is the person that is responsible for the delivery of the service and the oversight of the team that is delivering that service to the clients is really, really crucial. Um, Other component that heavily supports this is good documentation. And I know a lot of people struggle with both of these elements, right? It's not easy and it's not something you can kind of just wave a wand at and it all of a sudden gets better. But it is something you need to be thinking about on a regular basis and making incremental improvements. Both of these things, the service management and the documentation in particular, are things that over time will become better if you just look at 1%, 2% incremental improvements. So that's a really heavy focus that I want people to be aware of. And just a sort of a quick sort of side note here, I have some courses on my website. If you want to check those out a little later, that speak exactly to these points. The service management, have a service manager boot camp, as well as an IT documentation course. So if you're struggling with any of those elements, like a lot of MSPs are, definitely check that out. That'll help you sort of leap you forward a little bit. All right. Step 2, tame the communication chaos. So a lot of MSPs struggle with sort of manning the phones and the phone calls. And this is a very analog way of dealing with customer support. Your service desk, your help desk is far more scalable if you're focusing on those inbound requests being an email, or technically even better into a portal system, which we're going to look at. So you want to direct users away from the phone. 9 times out of 10, I tell people well, I guess there's two factors here. One is generational. So there is definitely an element of your older cohort of users will probably be more comfortable making a phone call to connect with you. That is to some degree true and may not be something that you can necessarily sway them away from. But the other element here is largely cultural, because that's just how they've engaged with IT in the past. And in a lot of cases, the users don't trust that if they send an email, something will happen quickly, right? This is key to actually driving this behavior. Is A, you need to train the users about how you want to engage them for support. And B, you want to make sure that they get a quality of service that makes them comfortable with the idea that, well, I don't need to call them and speak to someone so that I know that I spoke to Chris and Chris said that he's going to look after this for me. This is where this element that a lot of MSPs struggle with of, can I just talk to Chris? Like he's the only IT guy I want to talk to. It's that degree of trust that you need to build here. So if you can direct people away from phones to email and to chat portals, that goes a long way to making your help desk more scalable. So a really important piece of this is having a ticket workflow. You should have a defined workflow of what the life cycle of a ticket looks like. This is a great element to build out as a part of that development of your service process. So, quickly in chat, if we could get maybe some feedback on this, do you guys have a defined ticket workflow? And a good way to understand this is like, well, I have an SOP. Okay. But if you asked each of your staff what the ticket workflow, what the life cycle of the ticket looked like, would they have any idea what you're talking about? So this is a good way to think about this, right? So is anybody maybe struggling with this? Is this a problem for some of the people on the call? You can sort of throw your views on this into chat. I'd love to sort of get the spectrum of where people sit on this. Of, yeah, we have one, it works well, or it's in development, probably still struggling with it, whatever that is. So don't be shy. It's an area again of just continuous development, right? So I mentioned having a ticketing portal, and one of the things that I see a lot is users will send an email, hopefully, and they'll say my computer is broken, and like that doesn't really tell us anything. So immediately, like, I can't get started on this ticket. What does broken mean? Like, what do you mean? So CloudRadial has a really good system for this, for having a ticketing portal where it's structured. The data coming in is sort of fed to them, and you give them breadcrumbs along the way, and they can give you better information about how to actually create that ticket and what's potentially wrong. So, Ricky, if you want to give us a little more detail on that and talk about that ticketing portal from CloudRadial, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think the concept itself is not like, I'm not going to pretend like we came up with something brand new that's never been done before, because I think a lot of people, like you said, have something in place like this. I think the important thing to note is that you're dealing with two different things, right? You're dealing with the internal side, right? For the MSP's perspective, that you're saying, okay, can I get this structured? Yeah, because whenever you submit a ticket or get a ticket that is, my computer's broken, you're then having to deal with pulling teeth from the customer If they don't feel like responding for a week, all of a sudden it's your fault because you were slow. It's a whole thing, right? Everyone knows that story. So I think the concept of a ticketing portal is easy enough to grasp. So what we do is we let you get the power to, structure it in whatever way you want. What's on screen right now is probably the most popular form that people want to do, which is employee onboarding. Structuring that, standardizing that, making sure that you get everything you need on the first pass is super important. But I would say for our webinars and the conversation in general, it's not just about having the ticketing portal or just this ticketing experience, having that be part of the greater experience. And like you said, making that something that they're comfortable. They know that when they submit a ticket and they can track it and they can see it and they have a centralized place to do that, then all of a sudden you're really enhancing that experience, and then you're putting it into context with everything else that you do for them. So I would say, yes, have a ticketing portal. Yes, make sure that you can get as much information on the first pass as possible. But like CloudRadial does, keep that special consideration. Say, well, how does this trickle down to the next workflow, the customer experience, the CSAT workflow, which we'll talk about in a bit as well.
So appreciate it. All right, so a little pro tip here around the service experience, and one of the things that people noted coming into this webinar was some struggles with accountability, and I want to give you kind of some tips around how to support your techs to drive that accountability and also have a higher quality of experience, user experience for the people that you're supporting. So, a big one here is to use lead indicators to drive business behaviors, and how do you understand this? A lot of people naturally know what indicators are, KPIs, these data points that you sort of track. They give you results of how we're doing. The difference here is that a lot of people understand lag indicators, which is you reflect back on what has happened, like how many tickets did we close today, how many tickets did we close last week, what was our SLA compliance, what is our CSAT score. Those are lag indicators, and they're helpful to understand the tracking of how we're doing in the business. But a more important one that is less leveraged is lead indicators. So in order to end up at that lag indicator, what are the things that need to happen that happen before the lag indicator results, right? So for example, you can just sort of break this down of how many tickets are we closing on a daily basis? Therefore, how many will we close at the end of the week? Making sure that we have this positive kill rate where we're closing more tickets than we're opening every day. And you can break that down even further of it's 10 a.m. across the team. We've only closed 4 tickets, but we know for us to keep track with our volume, we need to be closing on average 10 to 12 by noon. So we're behind. We need to rally the team and see kind of what we can affect here. So be conscious of if you have lag indicators that how do you precede those with lead indicators to make sure that you're on the right track and having someone sort of pushing that to the end goal so you get where you want to be, but you can actually affect things along the way rather than just sort of being beholden to where you ended up. Okay. All right. Another piece here is formatted ticket notes, which is really helpful, both because it makes the tickets more readable, right? Both for the end user, but also for the techs. When you escalate a ticket or you're picking up a ticket from somebody else, it's much easier to read these bulleted notes. Like an example here is like, this is what I tried. This is maybe what's next. And that's it, right? And this is much easier, much more readable than a paragraph that is just sort of like written text, and you got 6 of those, and it's sort of this wall of text that someone looks at and they're like, ugh, I don't know, a lot of work. I need to maybe I'll just ask the client what happened, and then you're forcing the client to re-explain to you for the 3rd time what the problem is. So this also helps with the accountability of having techs enter their time and being more consistent with the time entry and notes on tickets. Because if it's easier, it's just bulleted notes, then they're going to be more compliant because it doesn't feel sort of arduous to write these long paragraphs of text that are not terribly useful in support for the users or supporting the rest of the team. Okay. So a couple of quick tips there. Last one here around sort of the support experience is soft skills matter, right? So we talked about this about people will remember how you feel, and it's to the point of like people will be able to tell if you're smiling through the phone. Like there's this expression, people see you through the phone, and like if I say, "Hi, how are you?" or versus "Hey, how are you?" right? That intonation makes a difference, right? Like all I have to do is just turn my mouth up slightly. It's these simple skills like empathy. And someone calls in and say, I'm really frustrated. This is the 3rd time this week that this program has failed for me. Saying, hang on, let me check the notes. Versus, I'm really sorry to hear that. I know that can be frustrating. Let me check the notes really quickly and see if we can get this resolved and make sure it doesn't recur for you. right? It's a simple turn of phrase, just changing how you actually interact with the user. Leveraging those soft skills dramatically makes a difference in how the user feels and how they've been seen by you as a support partner. Okay. Another piece that's really critical here is measuring how those clients do feel, and measuring the experience that they are providing. So Hannah, if you want to tell us a bit more about the Simplesat CSAT scoring and how that can help the clients view and provide feedback to the MSP.
Absolutely. So use CSAT surveys on every single ticket. Again, we highly recommend to add or like send out surveys for every ticket interaction. So this is to ensure your survey is both visible and also engaging. It's actually one of those effective approach. In that way, you can get a read on their feelings and make sure they're getting the help that they need, and at the same time, making sure that your support team are actually consistent in providing good customer experience. So one of the things that SimpleSat offer, whenever you get a ticket, all of those essential or important info for you to analyze the data, how your customer felt about that particular support ticket are actually included in the feedback data, such as the ticket assignee, the board, the subject, whatever transpired to that specific interaction with your support team. So you can generate certain reports and you can address those issues that were brought up by your customer for every ticket interaction that they had with you.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Hannah. All right, so step 3, we want to focus on the long game to prevent churn. So we talked about how, there's an expectation that you're good at tech. That's why they hired you. You're now providing a high quality service experience, but you still want to make sure that you're focusing on providing business value to your clients. So you want to be personable, you want to be able to communicate with your clients, but also digging a little deeper and getting below the surface of just, hey, that's my IT guy. That expression, it's meant to be endearing, but in some ways it doesn't sort of qualify the level of expertise and the level of business value that ultimately you want to try to be providing to your customers. So how do you do that? You want to be able to focus on continuing to provide that high level business value. And this is one of the really crucial aspects that will help prevent clients churning out, because they feel some level of loyalty and they recognize the value that you're providing as a partner. So a really key piece to this is what we talked about, is having a TBR or a QBR. And this helps to keep the client engaged. It sets up those conversations. Service is now dialed. That's not a distraction. We're now able to focus on projects and roadmap engagement with that client. And it helps to also keep the client accountable to the things that you're determining and setting priority on. So each time you're meeting with that client, hey, we talked about this last quarter. These are the projects that we want to queue up for next quarter, and these are the projects that we want to queue up for next year. Make sure that you guys are budgeting X amount of dollars so that those projects can be kicked off in 6 months, right? This is a necessary business interaction. One of the things that I see a lot of is, clients will be sort of pigeonholed into being cheap. Like an owner or an account manager will go out, talk to a client, and they'll say, we need to do this project. It's $20,000. Can we send over a statement of work or a quote and get you to sign off on that? And they're like, no, we can't do that. No, we can't afford that. And so they're a little defeated. They come back to the office and goes like, these guys are never going to do this. I've talked to them twice about this and they just don't, it's not going to happen. And what a lot of people are often missing in this is that they don't have $20,000 right now. Like every time you go to talk to them, they're like, where am I going to get 20K? But you need to precede those conversations of saying, 6 months from now, a year from now, this is the budget that we need to be thinking about from an IT perspective. Because most clients that you go to talk to, they're like, what's your IT budget? And they just sort of scoff. They look over at their controller. They're like, what did we spend last year? Right? Like there's no forethought or planning typically that goes into a lot of businesses around IT. So this is exactly where you can provide that business value and working in a QBR or TBR process if you have this as a more coherent process and setting up the value of these meetings. So again, Ricky, if CloudRadial does a great job at this and having sort of a lightweight, easy to use QBR cycle tool. You want to give us a demo on this?
Yeah, I think it's, again, very, very topical to what you were saying. And again, as a part of the general client experience, what we're trying to offer is not something that I think is a true standalone tool, but again, integrated with the same thing that we saw earlier. The tickets are in the same place, the reports of various types are in the same place. TBR, QBR, SBR, whatever BR you want to call it, is in the same place. And what you're seeing on screen is, again, a pretty simple explanation that fits into what you're saying, as far as you want to be able to have that conversation and show them what's coming. But even more than that, right? Show them what you've already done. Show them what you could be doing. And if you don't really have that, and if you're waiting for these conversations to happen, and then just vomiting reports, vomiting all these different things, it becomes something that is really pretty quickly muddled down and becomes hard to get your point across. So whether it's CloudRadial or not, right? Putting that somewhere that you can have that kind of laid out and have that be interactive is super important for the client experience. And even like to what you were saying about the $20,000 project, having a way to mark that, like, okay, not yet, or like maybe we want to see that later, or a flat out, they declined it, is really important, even to cover yourself. Because sometimes, yeah, it would be cool and you're doing your best job as an advisor. Other times you're doing these, business reviews, and you're giving them true advice that may save their skin if, there's compliance or security issues. So if you can have a board that's available, that's public, and again, as part of the customer experience, then even tracking those declinations can save your butt whenever somebody comes auditing you. So in general, putting that roadmap in their hands along with yours is the key thing to take away here, regardless of how you do it, really.
Yeah, I like that what you added there about the giving them visibility of what has happened, right? Because I think that sort of speaks directly to the next piece of this around having CSAT. We've talked about that, but also having NPS. And NPS is maybe something that people are not necessarily as familiar with. But I think from my perspective, you absolutely need to use both. CSAT is transactional. You understand that ticket, that user, what was the interaction, so you can understand that as a trend for the user, for the business, for the tech that's supporting them. But also NPS is different. It's the business value. How does the owner view us as a partner, more at a global level? And that doesn't happen on every ticket. It happens probably as a part of that QBR cycle. But all to that, like if they don't understand the value that you're providing without that QBR cycle and having those meetings to inform them of the great work that you're doing, they may just be reflecting on the type of feedback that they get in the doorway. And I've seen this a lot of times where the NPS and the CSAT score doesn't necessarily agree, right? Where the business owner has, this negative person that's very vocal stands in their doorway saying IT sucks, la 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 la, and they get they're kind of flaming on you. And they take that to the meeting. They're like, I don't know, my staff says you guys are terrible, and you go, really? Like pull up CSAT surveys. They're like, out of we're getting 40% people giving us feedback, and the CSAT score is 97%. So that doesn't square, right? Like where are you getting that information from? Because the info that I have says that your users absolutely love us. So having that information to be able to prepare against that, I think, is really key. Hannah, anything you want to add on sort of that NPS and CSAT combo?
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't agree more with how you explained it. Whenever I have a demo or talk to our existing customers, once I found out that they're not sending any, NPS survey, I always suggest to do it. Mainly because, as what you've said, CSAT gives them like the data that they need in order to improve their support team. It's just, a data about, that specific agent or like short interaction. But long term, they don't have any idea whether or not this client or specific partner is going to cancel or not. Because again, CSAT just give them an idea if their support team is doing a great job. NPS, on the other hand, gives them like a 360 degree overview. It's not just about data, whether or not this customer feels satisfied with every support interaction, but also gives them an idea whether or not the product is still, worth their money. So NPS, similar to CSAT, is really essential and important to send out just to time check. And also, one thing that I'd like to add, not all of your customers would reach out to your support team whenever they have an issue. So CSAT is only sent out whenever someone submits a ticket. So the best customers or people to get NPS feedback are the ones who are very quiet or not interacting or engaging with your support. So You want to make sure that they're still satisfied or happy and prevent any future churn or like cancellation.
Great. Appreciate it. All right. So step 4, final step here. So now that we've got all of this other stuff dialed, now that we can start to leverage a lot of these things that we've built and the practices that we have to start growing your business. So a great way to do this is asking for referrals. I think a lot of people fundamentally understand this, but a lot of business owners struggle with actually executing on this. And I think there's some great tools that we're talking about here that can actually help you leverage this ability in a really powerful way. So, for example, like reaching out to the people, if you're doing NPS survey on a quarterly basis, you have a pretty good sentiment of the people that are in your corner, that they value as a provider. So prioritize those people. If you're getting 9s and 10s or even an 8 for that matter of NPS scoring from a customer, go to those customers and say, hey, I understand you guys really enjoy working with us. I'd like to better understand the value that we provide. And if you know any companies, and then you actually describe a company that matches sort of your ideal customer profile. So you want to say, customer, do you know any other businesses that are around 20 to 50 staff and maybe struggle with the IT services that they're getting, or they don't trust the IT provider that they have? You want to be really specific. And the reason why this is if you just say, do you know any businesses that need some IT support? They may just be like, yeah, maybe I'll think about it. And they're doing the best to help you. But if you're specific in what you describe, in a lot of ways, it triggers their memory of like, I was talking to Terry, we were out golfing last week, and he said like his IT group was terrible, and the company that they'd outsourced to, they just couldn't get to answer the phone, and nothing happened. So, maybe actually I know this guy. Like it'll trigger their memory around something specific. So it's a little tip on just sort of how you should specifically be asking for referrals when you're meeting with your client. And the other piece here that you can leverage Simplesat to post your CSAT score to your website, which is a really powerful branding tool, right? Where you're proud enough of the feedback that you get from your customers that you're able to post that live on your website, and you can marketing saying like, go check our website. Our customers love us, and here is the visual indicator that is true, right? So, maybe Hannah, if you want to speak to how Simplesat can support some of the MSP marketing efforts with the tool set they have.
Yeah, absolutely. So to get more 4 and 5-star rating, as what we've mentioned earlier, to ensure your survey is both visible and engaging, one effective approach is to include the customer satisfaction survey in every ticket or email communication that you have with your customers. So this will help you out gather feedback from customers while also keeping the brand on top of mind. Another key aspect in making the survey visible is by crafting a compelling subject line. Don't use a cliche subject line because for sure you're not going to get the attention of your customers. So create or draft a compelling subject line. This will encourage your customers to open and engage with the survey. Also, to enhance the effectiveness of the survey, try to experiment with different question scales and question type. So Simplesat offers multiple question type that you can actually experiment, identify which is the most effective one that your customers tend to engage with. Also, to collect valuable insights, it's important to ask your customers the right question that provide, relevant information about your customer's experience. And also, adding a personal touch to the survey can increase your customer engagement. Short and simple surveys are typically more effective as they're less, daunting, doesn't consume much time of your customers, and most likely to be completed. So you can also provide, incentive, which can also help you out boost your response rate and, attract or like persuade your customers to participate in the survey that you're actually sending out or running. So lastly, it is important to track response rates over time, just so you can determine whether any changes in the survey or the approach used to have a positive or negative effect to your customer. So by implementing these strategies, you can make your survey more visible, engaging, effective, and gaining valuable feedback. One of the features that Simplesat offer, it actually, gives you like an easy way to close the feedback loop. And just like what Todd mentioned earlier, you can also leverage Simplesat in increasing reviews on other websites that you have. So whenever you send out a survey and your customer already, click on that survey, you want to seize that opportunity to capitalize on the attention of the satisfied survey respondents by enabling the call to action button, which is available in Simplesat. So you can filter out positive reviewers, and this will prompt them to leave positive reviews on platforms like Facebook, Google, and other review websites. Also, just to add on that, if someone leaves a positive review, that's already a great opportunity to reach out to them personally and thank them for the kind words. You can even ask them or kind of remind them about those call to action button that you've set up so that they can submit another review on those websites. So this way, you're not just, passively waiting for your views to come in. You're actively engaging with your customers and building a relationship with them. And that can only be a good thing for your business in the long run. Now,
Yeah,
the last feature. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
just a quick note here, Hannah. Like, I think I want to underline the fact that if you can push those like the tool allows you to sort of push the user to create a Google reviews, and that I think that's a super powerful thing around
Yeah,
amping up your SEO, right? Like Google cares whether or not you have ratings, especially for local searches, right? So if you want to up your SEO, this is a super powerful way to do it because Google will dramatically uprank your listing in Google results if you say, IT support Portland, IT support near me. It prioritizes those things if you have those ratings. So this is something I would spend a lot of time on getting like sort of pushing your clients to action this. They may or may not do it if you ask once, but I think like reinforcing that idea of like, hey, I would really appreciate it if you could do this. Here's the quick, simple steps to do this. It'll take you under a minute, and we would really appreciate it. I think that's a super powerful way to spice up your SEO. Sorry, Hannah.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Todd. All right. So the last feature that I do want to share with everyone is advertise your good reviews. Simplesat offer feedback widget. It's a good way to capitalize or use those positive reviews as marketing materials. Now, I'm also a customer, so when choosing a vendor, customers often rely on the reviews of other customers to make an informed decision. The reason for this is that customer reviews provide a genuine and unbiased perspective on the product or service being offered. So, by reading about the experiences of other customers, prospective buyers, customers can somehow gain insight into the quality of your product or services and also the level of support that you provided and overall the reputation of the vendor or your business. So these customer reviews will serve as a valuable source of info for customers who are unable to physically evaluate the product or service, up prior to purchase or committing to subscription or contract. So publishing good reviews or feedback on your website can significantly influence potential customers' purchasing decision. So Simplesat offers that feature. It's very easy to set up. You can customize it to your heart's desire, and it wouldn't take you more than an hour to set it up.
Right. Awesome. So, quick summary here of some of the things we've gone over. You want to create this incredible onboarding experience. Train your users to engage with you in the way that creates a scalable and high quality customer experience. Design your support experience and be intentional about how you're actually building that process and the experience that you're creating for those users. And focus on that long term strategy. Build customers that are absolute crazy raving fans of your service and are more likely to refer you to other organizations and to help you build your business. All
All
right,
right.
Corey, turn it back to
Yeah.
you.
So thank you, Todd. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Ricky. That was incredible. I hope everyone in the audience learned as much as I did there. So just to kind of wrap things up, I need to get everyone's attention. If anyone's got, if you're in different tabs or something, come back. Need your attention here. So What we need is your feedback, and this is going to be important to help us improve and important for us to be able to help you after this webinar. So what I'm going to do is start another poll here. And okay, so live here. So 3 questions, just like the first poll. Question 1, so how much did you get out of today's webinar? Naturally, as a customer feedback management company, we are obsessed with feedback and continuous improvement. So we need your feedback. Please give it to us. Again, this is anonymous. So be honest. We need good feedback. Question 2, would you like us to sign up for the next webinar? And what this will do is it'll make it so you don't need to register anywhere. You don't need to fill out any more forms. We will just once we have the next date planned, we'll send you an invite, and then you can just accept it then. So you're on the fast track to Simplesat's webinar series. And lastly, how would you like us to help us with the next one? So the first one, you want a Simplesat demo. Second one, CloudRadial demo. Third one about Todd's training courses. And then for everyone who's not in the mood today, nothing now, but thanks. All right, so I'll give everyone just a few more seconds to answer this poll here. And then we have, one more thing after this. So that's actually, I'll keep talking as this poll runs. So thank you everyone for joining here. Finally, we have 3 QR codes, and what these QR codes do is will take you to a Calendly or a calendar page for you to sign up for an Evolve intro with Todd, a CloudRadial demo call with their sales team and product experts, and as well a Simplesat demo. If any of these QR codes don't work for whatever reason, you could just Google or go to these websites, Evolve, CloudRadial, or Simplesat, and find those links as well. But if you're not using any of these tools or working with Todd, we really recommend you to check it out and see how they can benefit your business to streamline client operations and QBRs and increasing reviews and all the great stuff that we've talked about. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. Thanks you experts for sharing your knowledge, and everyone for taking the time. It is almost 11 p.m. in Bangkok. It's almost midnight in Philippines. So we're either going to go to bed or go out and party. We haven't decided which one. Everyone else, have a great day, and thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.